My fiancée said in a mocking tone, "Stop calling me your future wife. It makes me feel like I settled." I simply replied, "All right." Noted. That same night, I quietly erased my name from every list she'd put me on. My name is Daniel. I'm 29, and until 3 days ago, I was planning to marry someone I thought I knew. Looking back, I realized I was the only one actually planning anything. She was already 3 steps ahead, and I was too blind to see it. I met Victoria at a networking event 2 years ago. She was sharp, ambitious, worked in marketing, and had this infectious energy that made everyone around her feel like they were part of something. I was immediately drawn to her. We dated for 8 months before I proposed at the Ritz with a custom-designed diamond ring I'd saved for. She said yes. She cried. She told me I'd made her the happiest woman alive. I believed her. The wedding was supposed to be in 4 months. We'd booked the venue, sent invitations, done all the planning. Her parents loved me. My family adored her. Everything felt solid, like we were building something real. Then came last Tuesday. Victoria and I were in our apartment, a 2-bedroom we'd bought together 6 months prior. We were lounging on the couch after dinner, and she made some comment about how tired she was of hearing me call her my future wife. She said it mockingly, like it was something beneath her, like the title itself was a cage. She literally used the word settled. As in, she'd settled for me. I remember feeling my chest tighten. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded and said, "All right." Noted. But something inside me shifted that moment. I went to the bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the edge of our bed in the dark, and I realized I needed to know what was actually happening. Not the version of Victoria I'd constructed in my head, but the real one. The woman who used that particular tone of voice, mocking, dismissive, like she was looking down at me. That's when I started looking. I wasn't a hacker or anything dramatic. I just used her iCloud backup password, which she'd stupidly written down in her phone notes as birthday 1988. Her phone was synced to her laptop. I opened her email. What I found made my stomach drop. There were messages between Victoria and someone named Chris. And they weren't just flirty. They were explicit. Detailed descriptions of things they'd done together. Things I'd never known about. Dates that overlapped with nights she'd told me she was working late at the office. Explicit photos I had to close immediately because the reality was too brutal. I kept reading. I found financial statements showing she'd been transferring money, thousands of dollars, to an account I didn't recognize. I found screenshots of text conversations between her and a divorce attorney that she'd dated to 3 months ago. 3 months. Before I even knew anything was wrong. She was already preparing an exit strategy. There were notes in her private calendar labeled engagement fund. Under it was a list of names, including mine. Apparently, she'd been engaged before. Twice. And the notes next to our names were calculations. Dollar amounts. Estimated net worth. She'd literally been running a spreadsheet on her fiancés like they were investment portfolios. My name had a note that read, $80,000 liquid plus house equity, half, equals roughly $320,000 in settlement. She had underlined it twice. I closed the laptop slowly. My hands were shaking. I felt like I was going to be sick. I went to the bathroom and sat on the tile floor for probably 30 minutes, just breathing. When I came out, Victoria was already asleep. I lay down next to her, the woman I'd planned to spend my life with, and I didn't sleep a single minute that night. Wednesday morning, she acted normal. We had coffee together. She kissed me goodbye before work like always. I watched her leave and felt something cold crystallize inside me. Not just anger. Something colder. Clarity. I spent that entire day making calls and doing research. I called my lawyer, someone I'd met through a college friend, and told him everything. I didn't go into detail over the phone, but I said I needed to understand my legal position before my wedding. He asked me to come in. When I showed him the screenshots, the timeline, the financial records, he actually winced. "She's been planning this methodically," he said quietly. "These look like documented patterns. If you go through with this marriage, and then she divorces you within the next couple years, she walks away with half of everything you own plus alimony. The judge won't see her planning as premeditation if it happens after you're married. But they might see it as evidence of infidelity if you find it now." I asked him what I should do. He told me to wait. To gather more evidence. To understand the full scope of what I was dealing with before making any moves. He also told me something that hit hard. Don't tip her off. If she knows you know, she'll accelerate the timeline. Let her think everything is normal. Thursday morning, I woke up and went through the motions like nothing had changed. I made breakfast. I told her I loved her. I meant none of it, but I said it anyway. She had no idea that the man beside her had already dismantled the life they were supposedly building together in his mind. I hired a private investigator that day, a woman named Patricia who specialized in infidelity cases. She charged $2,500 up front, and I paid it without hesitation. I told her everything I knew and gave her access to the information I'd found. She took maybe 15 minutes to lay out a plan. We need to document her with this other man in compromising situations, Patricia explained. Photos, timestamps, locations. If you're serious about protecting your assets, we build a case. You'll need it during the divorce. Divorce. The word still felt surreal. Friday evening, Victoria came home and told me she'd been invited to a weekend getaway with some friends from work. Girls' weekend, she called it. She'd be gone Saturday and Sunday. I told her to have fun, to relax, that she deserved it. She seemed almost relieved that I wasn't clingy about it. She packed a bag and left Saturday morning around 9 a.m. Patricia texted me an hour later with a photo. Victoria wasn't with girlfriends. She was at the Marriott downtown with Chris. They were walking through the lobby together, and there was no denying what that was. That same day, I had the locks changed on our apartment. Not the main lock. I hired a locksmith to reprogram the smart lock system so that Victoria's key fob no longer worked. I did it cleanly. No drama. Just a quiet change in access. She called me around 2 p.m. on Sunday when she tried to get back in. I could hear the panic in her voice as she realized her key wasn't working. Daniel, what the hell? Why can't I get in? Hi, Victoria. We need to talk when I'm ready to talk. Not right now. You'll get back in when I say you can. You can't. Daniel, that's insane. Open the door. I don't know what your problem is. I know you know Chris. I said quietly. I know about the emails. The photos. The divorce attorney you contacted. The spreadsheet with my name and the dollar amounts. I know all of it. And I know you've been planning this for months. So no, I'm not going to explain myself to you over the phone. You can stay in a hotel tonight. Or you can call Chris. I don't really care. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. Daniel, I hung up. I didn't answer her next 15 calls. I turned off my phone and sat in our apartment in the dark, feeling oddly calm. The anger I'd expected to feel wasn't there. What was there was worse, a complete and total absence of feeling for her. She'd become a problem to solve, like a math equation, and I was going to solve it. Monday morning, my lawyer sent her a formal letter. It outlined everything, the infidelity, the financial inconsistencies, the documented communications with a divorce attorney. It requested a full financial disclosure and informed her that I was initiating proceedings to void the engagement pending investigation into her financial motivations for the marriage itself. She called my lawyer directly. According to him, she was very upset and claimed I was being vindictive and that none of this was planned, and that I was just exploring my options like anyone would. Her lawyer, a different one from the one in her calendar, responded by claiming I was being emotionally abusive by locking her out. My lawyer's response was surgical. Explore your options, but do so honestly. If this case goes to court, a judge will see a pattern of deception and infidelity. They will also see that you were planning your exit strategy before the wedding. That shows intent. That matters. She tried to get back into the apartment on Tuesday. I wasn't home. She showed up with a locksmith of her own, but the smart lock system was in my name, and the locksmith informed her that the owner, me, had to authorize any changes. She was furious. She waited for me to come home from work, and I found her sitting in the hallway. We need to talk, she said. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. I invited her inside, and for the first time in days, we sat in the same room and looked at each other as enemies instead of partners. Why are you doing this? She asked. I never said I didn't love you. You literally called me something you settled for. You've been cheating on me for months. You've had conversations with divorce attorneys. You have a spreadsheet where you calculated my net worth like I was an investment. So don't sit here and tell me you love me. I made mistakes. No, Victoria. You made a plan. Those are different things. Mistakes are accidents. What you did was deliberate. You were going to marry me, take half my assets in a divorce, and then move on to the next person on your list. She looked away. Chris means nothing to me. It was just, I don't care. That's not even the point. The point is that you're not who I thought you were. And I'm done. She tried to negotiate after that. She said she'd end things with Chris. She said we could go to couples counseling. She said she'd sign a prenup if that's what I wanted. She said she loved me and that I was overreacting. I told her that our engagement was over, that she had 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live, and that my lawyer would be handling all further communication. I also told her that if she tried to access the apartment again without permission, I'd file a restraining order. I said it all very calmly, which seemed to shake her more than anger ever could. She left around 8 p.m. that night. She tried to take some of her things, but I told her I'd have everything packed and ready for pickup by Friday. She could schedule a time with my lawyer's office, and they'd supervise the exchange. Wednesday through Friday was a blur of paperwork. My lawyer filed the official dissolution of engagement. We subpoenaed her financial records, her communications, everything. Victoria's lawyer kept trying to negotiate, but I wasn't interested in negotiating. I was interested in making sure she couldn't do this to anyone else. The financial records told an even uglier story. Over the past 2 years, she'd been engaged to 2 other men before me. Both engagements had ended in mutual decisions, but both men had conveniently paid for her apartment, her car, and various personal expenses during those engagements. When the engagements ended, she'd walked away clean. With me, she'd calculated it differently. She wanted to actually marry me and then divorce me to maximize the settlement. She'd started looking at divorce attorneys before I even proposed because she was already planning how to extract the most value. The investigators found that Chris wasn't her first affair either. There were others. Guys she met through work. Guys from her gym. She'd been systematically unfaithful throughout our entire relationship. By the following Monday, the story had started to spread through our social circles. Her parents found out. My parents found out. Friends we'd invited to the wedding found out. It was humiliating for everyone, but I wasn't going to apologize for telling the truth. Victoria tried to control the narrative. She told people I was abusive and controlling. She said I'd locked her out of the apartment for no reason. She said I was vindictive because she'd made a mistake. But when people actually looked at the evidence, the timelines, the emails, the attorney communications, the spreadsheets, it became clear what had actually happened. By the following month, everything was finalized. We went through a legal separation process, and she walked away with very little. She didn't get half the apartment because we'd only owned it 6 months, and she'd contributed nothing to the down payment. She didn't get alimony because the engagement was dissolved before marriage, and the court found evidence of premeditated infidelity and financial manipulation. She got the things that were legally hers, her clothes, her personal items, her car, and that was it. She lost her job about a month after everything blew up. Apparently, she'd been using company time and resources for her personal affairs, and when HR found out about the scandal, they let her go. She moved to another city. I haven't heard from her since. Chris dumped her too, by the way. Turns out he didn't know he was the other man. He thought Victoria was single when they started seeing each other. When he realized she was engaged and planning a divorce scheme, he wanted nothing to do with her. The friends she'd been supposed to go on a girls' weekend with, they dropped her completely. Turns out they'd known she was cheating the entire time and had been covering for her. When the truth came out, they didn't want to be associated with the fallout. As for me, I'm still in the apartment. I've had it reprogrammed so that only I can access it, and I've installed additional security cameras. I've started therapy to work through the betrayal. I've also learned to be a lot more careful about who I let into my life. I went back and erased myself from every list she'd put me on, the wedding invite list, the joint bank accounts, the beneficiary forms. She'd been planning to erase me from her life, financially anyway. I just did it first. People asked me why I didn't just confront her immediately, why I played it cool for so long. The truth is, I needed to protect myself. If I'd blown up in anger, I would have come off as the angry man. By being methodical, by gathering evidence, by being the one with facts instead of feelings, I became the person who was right. I'm not saying I'm a good person for how I handled it. I'm not saying I took the high road, but I am saying I protected myself, and I made sure she faced real consequences for what she did. In a world where people like Victoria get away with this kind of thing constantly, I wanted to make sure she didn't. Sometimes I still see her name pop up on social media. She's rebuilt her image. New city, new friends, new narrative. I'm sure she's telling people I was the problem. I'm sure she's told Chris a completely different version of events. I'm sure she's already working on the next person. But I'm not that person, and neither is anyone else who knows the truth. I wasted 2 years of my life on someone who saw me as a transaction. But at least I caught it before I wasted the rest of my life. That's something that I